Well, the worst of the week's weather is behind us, but the forecast does remain a bit complicated.
Oh, it does. Let's bring in meteorologist Scott Sistek from the Emerald City Weather Blog. Good morning, Scott.
Morning, Amanda and Charlie.
Okay, so what are we looking for today before we get to the big holiday?
Right. Well, as Charlie alluded to, the worst of the weather is behind us now, but we are looking at a traditional, very soggy day before and day of Thanksgiving here. We've got another round of rain working its way through here today. It's going to hang around through Thanksgiving Day. Not the best news for everybody who I know is probably itching to get out of the office here any moment now and hit the road or hit the ferry or hit SeaTac or wherever, but it is pretty common to have it rain here on Thanksgiving, and this is going to be just like another one of those days.
Yeah, so how is Thanksgiving Day itself shaping up? This is going to be probably not much, throwing the football or anything like that outdoors.
Yeah, it's a very traditional Seattle-esque day out there. Luckily, it's not looking too stormy. We've had plenty of Thanksgivings through the years that have caused all sorts of chaos. I was thinking of 1990, not too long from that day. That was when it rained so much that the I-90 bridge sank. So nothing to that level here. It's just going to be like a typical Seattle, light to moderate rainy day here. A little blustery at times. We were looking earlier this week, potential for maybe a storm coming in that would bring in some wind. That storm is kind of heading a little farther south now, so kind of taking at least the big winds out of the equation here. We will still see some, just the regular Seattle blustery kind of day. The trees will be moving. There's not much leaves on them anymore. Had there been leaves, they'd probably be any last little stragglers that are like clinging to the last, bits of branches there will probably have to give up this weekend. But all in all, as Thanksgivings go, one that we should be able to handle pretty well.
All right, let's talk about what's to come, because we have been kind of watching this big old blob of cold, right? What's the latest on that?
Right. Well, I know we've been very excited about it for about, week, 10 days. The very long range forecast has been saying, it might get cold like during Thanksgiving week or toward the end of Thanksgiving week or the week after. It's kind of been backing off a little bit, much to our disappointment. It looks like all of Thanksgiving weekend, so we're talking all the way through Sunday here, not going to be much of a deal at all. If anything, we'll dry out on after later on Thursday. We'll start drying out into Thursday night. But the rest of the 3-day weekend here looks pretty dry, and it will cool off a little bit. It's not like we're going to stay super warm, but earlier we were kind of thinking, maybe some days where it'll only get up to 40 and maybe some lows in the 20s, low 30s. Most of that cold air looks like it's going to head to the east and go bug like the the northern plains and east of the Rockies, that sort of thing. For us, we're thinking, it may cool down into like the mid 40s for highs, and the lows may drop to the mid 30s, maybe some freezing spots in the outlying areas, outside of like the core of Seattle. In the heart of the city here, probably mid 30s.
So we have been in a La Nina pattern, right? I guess the question is for us Seattle snow fans, is there still hope for anything like that in the weeks, the months ahead?
Oh, yeah. I think this is just like we're still usually La Nina really gets going like closer into the heart of winter. We can still see some impacts, in the start, like late autumn, early winter, kind of where we are now. There is still looking like it is going to be cooler once we start December. That cold air we were talking about is still kind of lurking out there in the extended forecast. It's just kind of pushing back a little bit. So I still think once we get to like the first, 10 days of December are going to be below average for temperatures. So I think skiers, we just need to get the rain back. It is kind of trending after we get through the storm today and tomorrow. We are going to start kind of drying out a little bit. And even the rain that's in the long range forecast doesn't look like big storms or anything, more like little hits here and there. But it will be colder storms. So what we do get should at least start getting some snow in the mountains. So that'll help get the skiers going, and then hopefully get that really going by the time Christmas and the holiday weeks roll around here. So we are still optimistic that December is going to end up below average for temps and maybe even a little wetter than average, just not to start the month, at least on the wet side. But if I'm a skier, I'm still optimistic.
Scott, on your blog, you talk about the Thanksgiving Day snowstorm of 1985. That was 40 years ago. I remember it. Manda remembers it.
Oh, yeah.
But if you weren't around in Seattle back in 1985, can you kind of describe what happened here?
It was like an amazingly stubborn and powerful Arctic pattern. And it actually started like the week before Thanksgiving. I think the first day of the cold was like November 20th, and Thanksgiving that year wasn't until the 28th. So even just like, even before you even start thinking about your Thanksgiving holiday, here comes like a blast of cold air. There was a first snowstorm, I think on the 21st. It dropped about 7-8 inches of snow in Seattle, even a little more in the outlying areas. So that was kind of like got everybody excited. And then it went into the deep freeze after that. So it stopped snowing, but it got really cold, like highs only in the 20s. The lows in Seattle dropped to around 10 to 15. There was an Apple Cup at Husky Stadium that year. I guess they called that the Ice Bowl. Cougars did win, but it was much to my chagrin. But it was a very cold, like it was in the 20s at Husky Stadium that day. And so a lot of memories there of people like freezing at Husky Stadium. I read that even they had to put antifreeze in the bathrooms there to keep the toilet running because it was so cold there. And then that cold air kept lingering. And then just as that weekend ended, we got into like the Monday, Tuesday before Thanksgiving, it warmed up to like 40 degrees, 42. And you're like, all right, we're out of this. It's going to start melting. Yeah. And then bam, storm number 2 came. And here comes another 8 inches of snow on the day before Thanksgiving.
I think there were power outages, weren't there? I kind of remember a turkey on a Coleman stove because we had no power. Lots of stories from people. That was like their biggest memory because after the snow hit on that Wednesday and then it iced over again. So you had another 8 inches of snow on top of whatever had fallen earlier. And then it dropped into 20s and teens again. And then there was some wind. It wasn't like a big windstorm, but there was probably like 20, 30, 35 mile an hour winds, that northerly Arctic wind that we see on occasion. So all that snow and ice and the wind, it just started knocking out power everywhere. And so it seems like from most of what I've read from the stories that the power seemed to go out kind of mid-afternoon. So it was like people had started cooking their Thanksgiving dinners and then everything stopped. And now what do? We have half-cooked turkeys. That's what the Coleman stove was for.
Well, fortunately, nothing like that, at least anytime soon. But again, like you said, not all hope is lost, even for people here in the Seattle area, for having perhaps some lowland snow at some point in the weeks or months ahead.
We are still it's still not zero for a white Christmas. I know it's just because we're still in the statistical odds from here. It's too far to see, but we are kind of due. I feel like I think it averages like every 7 years. Is every 13 years. It's about every 7 to 10 years we're supposed to get a white Christmas in Seattle. And I know I can't remember when the last one was. It was some years ago, but I don't want to give up hope, but I think we're due. And the other thing, going back to Thanksgiving, is, we had that big storm in 1985. It has never snowed on the day of or the day before Thanksgiving since then.
Oh.
So talk about being due.
I was just going to say.
Next year. Next year. Doesn't mean anything. It'll be year 41, but it hasn't happened in 40 years since. So you kind of feel like the odds are going to catch up with us at some point. It's not impossible for it to snow in Seattle in November. It's just rare, but not impossible.
All right, Scott, before we let you go, we do have one hard-hitting question for you. Charlie.
Uh-oh.
Yes, Scott, what is your go-to on Thanksgiving Day? You're sitting at the table. What are you grabbing for first?
Well, it's always last. I save it for the end, but I am a big fan of the cranberry sauce.
Okay, is it out of the can or fresh?
It's out of the can. I don't like the lumpy, like the actual cranberries. I know. Just give me the you're talking about the Jell-O earlier. Give me the Jell-O, the cranberry kind
Day glow salad is what we have at my house. Very similar to cranberries out of a can.
All right. Meteorologist Scott Sistek, thank you for joining us. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Emerald City Weather Blog, emeraldcityweather.com.